Are also learning about connections between Livelsberger and the man accused of driving down Bourbon Street in New Orleans, purposely hitting people and firing shots into the crowd. Both men were Army veterans, and sources tell Denver 7 investigates that both men served at the same military base at some point.
This morning we have team coverage starting with Natalie Chuck in Colorado Springs. And Natalie, both men also rented trucks from the attacks from the service called Turo.
That's right. Good morning, Nicole and Anusha. Right now, we are coming off of a pretty uneventful evening here at what is believed to be the apartment complex belonging to that driver of the Cybertruck that exploded in Las Vegas. But now we are seeing some activity. We were all just asked to leave the area and move down the hill a couple of blocks. You can see law enforcement behind me actively blocking off Autumn Knoll Drive right behind us. A couple of blocks up and to the left is where the complex is that they are looking at. Originally, law enforcement just had a single set of units blocked off, but now, as you can see, it is that whole entire neighborhood. People are beginning to wake up as the sun starts to come up, people walking their dogs, and this is what they are waking up to on the second day of 2025. I want to give you a look at the footage from around 9 o'clock last night when law enforcement started creating a perimeter right here. The apartment in question, sources confirmed they believe belongs to that man, that driver of the Cybertruck, and that is what investigators are honing in on here. We do not know or believe right now that investigators have actively gone in and searched that unit yet, but they have been monitoring this area all night long. We know that local and federal law enforcement agencies have boots on the ground here. A Colorado Springs police officer was just speaking with us earlier, originally saying we were going to have to leave the area at 7 o'clock. But as you can see, they had us do that a bit early. We also know that FBI and ATF agents were seen here last night, along with armored vehicles at the local police station that is just a few minutes away. Now, I want to give you a look at how far that Cybertruck traveled. One possible route from the address here in Colorado Springs to the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas can be seen on your screen. That's more than 800 miles. It's about a 12-hour drive. I did speak with a neighbor here who says she never noticed a Cybertruck in the area. She says it's something that typically would stick out. And again, like you mentioned earlier, those trucks, both this truck, this Cybertruck, and the truck involved in the New Orleans attack are believed to have been rented from an app called Turo that is used to rent out personal cars. Turo issuing a statement last night saying nothing was flagged on either of the suspects' accounts when they rented these cars that would cause them to question any sort of security threat. But of course, we are hoping to learn more about all of that today. We are expecting an update from law enforcement at some point today here in Colorado Springs.
Hey, you guys. Happy Saturday. So last night I was going over a few things, and I put this together last night, actually, but I wanted to just look over some things this morning, and I want to share some things with you. So as we know, 2025, it just really came in with a bang, and no pun intended at all. I mean, it was crazy. The New Orleans massacre, it really did have me down a little bit that day on New Year's, because I couldn't believe the tragedy that was going on down there, and I didn't understand why, and still to a point don't understand why it had to happen, but I kind of do understand why it did happen. So as we try to understand the senseless devastation that Shamsud Din Jabber left behind, someone else would come along and blow himself up in a Tesla Cybertruck in front of the Trump Tower. And they're saying that those two situations are very similar and could maybe come from the same place. Now, I will share with you a few things that do have similarities, and I will share with you a few things that I did find out about the Cybertruck bomber. Now, his name is Mathew Livelsberger, 37 years old, and he is American-born. He had driven 800 miles to end himself in Las Vegas in that Tesla Cybertruck that he rented from an app called Turo. Shamsud Din Jabber, 42 years old, had driven himself 347.5 miles to New Orleans and rented a Ford F-150 to do what I now know end himself from an app called Turo. Now, in my earlier video, I really thought that Jabbar had an escape plan. I did, but he did not. He did not. He knew what he was going there to do, and it was to definitely end himself. So both Livelsberger, and I hope I'm saying that right, Livelsberger and Jabbar, they were both married twice. Livelsberger's first wife, Sarah, says he was a misogynist, emotionally abusive, bizarre, unhealthy. She says a lot of things about him, to sum it up. His second wife left, and I did read it. It was recently. She believed that he was, unfaithful to her, and they had a baby. They had a baby together. Jabbar's first wife had a restraining order on him for being abusive. They never said exactly what kinds of abuse occurred, and I do believe his second wife had lost a child by him. And very recently, he had inboxed her and asked if he could have some belongings that belonged to the baby that they lost. Now, she did say she blocked him, not because he was harassing her or anything like that, but I'm going to use my own words. She just didn't want to entertain him anymore. And so she blocked him. And I also believe that that woman did say during their relationship it was some abuse, but again, they never specifically said what type of abuse, because we know that there's different types. Livelsberger and Jabbar both have served at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Both men served in Afghanistan in 2009. It was no indication if they were in the same, barracks or the same unit, but they were there in that same time frame. Maybe they came across each other. Who would know? Livelsberger is and was an active duty U.S. Green Beret at the time of this incident. He actually was on leave from his base in Germany, and he would travel to Las Vegas. Now, I also needed to add that Livelsberger, he was awarded a Bronze Star with Valor, I guess I'm saying that right, and Army Commendation Medal with Valor, both of which honor courageous acts in combat, and he has 5 Army Good Conduct medals indicated long periods of service free for disciplinary actions. So he has a lot of medals, and he seems to have been, a good soldier from everything that I've read. So was Jabbar. Now, the day before the Tesla explosion, he sent an email to some online media outlet saying that he was in possession of the, quote, massive VBID, unquote. Now, that stands for Vehicle-Borne Improvised Explosive Device. And he also said he was armed. Now, this is all according to a copy that was reviewed by CNN. He felt that the government agencies were tracking him at the time, and he had planned to travel to the U.S.-Mexican border. Now, wasn't Jabbar at that U.S.-Mexican border too, where that truck, had picked up a reading from the license reader? Yeah, he was, right? So Livelsberger hadn't said anything about Donald Trump, the hotel, or the Tesla in any of those emails that he sent. He used a combination of fireworks, gas tanks, camping fuel in the bed of his truck, the vehicle designated by a device controlled by him. He died by a self, in the driver's seat shortly. So he did that first, and the Tesla would designate. So it was more than likely on a timer, but he would end himself first. Now, they're saying that his body was so charged that it had to be identified through a partial tattoo still visible on his body, and there was a charred identification card inside, and they still are waiting, DNA and medical findings to make sure for a final confirmation. But more than likely, it was more than likely him. Jabbar had a truck full of explosives as well, and a detonator that he was going to use. That's when I honestly thought he was going to make a run for it, but no, he was going to, detonate himself inside. And he also had a gun. But, we all know that he died by a cop. So Livelsberger was a Army Special Force Operation Master Sergeant, a senior enlisted rank. And again, he was active in Germany with 10th Special Forces groups. And like Jabbar, he is described as a nice, this is Jabbar now, nice, calm, sweet, smart, quiet, helps people in need. And this is Livelsberger. He's described as big-hearted, intelligent, popular student, and he always tried to help his friends and struggling soldiers. Livelsberger had no issues with Trump. He's commented on his Facebook page when Trump was in office. He said that the things that Trump had did for the military, his friends do say that Livelsberger was not affiliated with any political party. So he is not a Republican, Democrat, liberal. He's not affiliated with any party. He just liked Trump for some reason. So messages was found in Livelsberger's phone addressed to fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans. Now this is what he is saying. It's time to wake up because the country's leadership is weak and only serves to enrich themselves. We are the United States of America, the best country to ever exist. But right now, we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This is not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than stunt with fireworks and explosives? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. So that was what he left on his phone that he wanted everyone to know when he detonated himself. Livelsberger's military records read he had been diagnosed with depression last year, but was not a risk to harming himself or any kind of violence. Now, for several years between 2018 and 2021, he had dated a nurse who cared for wounded vets. And she says that he told her that he suffered a traumatic brain injury while being deployed overseas. So it's kind of leading to this man most definitely was having some mental issues, which we know is not uncommon with the soldiers. So unlike Jabbar, Livelsberger, he didn't mention that he wanted to harm his family. Anything that I have read, I don't know what will come out recently, but right now, he hasn't said that. Though it is obvious that, he did have family issues. Livelsberger didn't have an ISIS flag with him and intentionally try to harm and kill others, while Jabbar left recordings, and videos behind. Livelsberger would leave that message on his phone behind. And we all know that Jabbar killed 15 people, intentionally injuring 35 more. So we know that Jabbar wanted to, take down as many people as he could. Now, I did read in one article that 7 people was wounded by, the cyber explosion. So I don't think that these two were in cahoots, or I don't think that they both came from an organization that told them to do this. I do think it is sheer a coincidence. I really do. I think both of these men were hurting and too far gone. They never asked anyone for help with their mental issues. And if they had, these issues, they hid it for as long as they could. And then, they start seeping out and you start seeing things and it's coming out in other ways, like they can't stay in their relationship, maybe drinking a bit too much, maybe, just hiding stuff. Yeah, it would come out eventually. And we see it did. It's unfortunate that this has happened to these two men. And, the devastation that was left behind. So today, Saturday, marks the fourth day of the year. And I believe every day we're going to wake up to some nonsense, to some craziness. I do. There was also a massacre in Queens, Jamaica, Queens in New York, where they say it might be gang related, but there were like 11 to 15 people that I believe passed away in that situation. So yeah, it's a lot of crazy stuff that is going on, and we're not even, a week in. It's scary. It's most definitely scary. So all we can do is stay as safe as we can.